girl in the green room. Now she's here. Kristin Weber, not Webb. Ken Kington.
Ken Kington, if you're listening, it's Weber, not Webb.
He did. Dan mentioned that. Good to have you, Kristin.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good to see you. I didn't see your accordion, so I'm assuming that you're not playing today.
Next time, I will have to bring that. And bless you, hashtag bless you, with my polka skills.
How did you, do you play polka at all?
I actually don't. Although I've pleaded with the worship pastors at my church that we need to start a polka service just for that.
Polka worship.
Because they're like, we don't really know how to incorporate this instrument in without making the spirit flee. So
That's funny.
And half the congregation.
Yeah.
But
so you're saying the accordion is of the devil, is what you're saying?
Well, you know.
It's up there with country music, probably.
Oh, wow.
That's Kristin
I might
Weber.
just have to flee the South now, actually.
Kristin Weber, she is a comedian, author, blogger, speaker, and a whole lot more. Are you on the worship team there?
I just started, yeah, because I'm actually new to Atlanta. I moved here from Colorado Springs.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
A few months ago.
Do people move away from Colorado
Springs? Oh, my
Springs?
goodness. I know it's like living in a postcard, like a moderately high postcard if you follow recent law changes, but a postcard nonetheless.
A lot of devil's lettuce being set on fire in Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
But it's pretty up there, though.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful. You almost don't notice that everyone is just in a daze the whole time.
That's funny.
But I started doing stand-up comedy because there's a slightly insane, I was dropped on my head one too many times as a baby, I guess.
I shouldn't laugh at that. I'm sorry.
No, but it's true. Stand-up comics, a lot of times have that in common. But I liked stand-up because I could control the content of my material, and I could also write it. So it was that writer's element. And for the longest time, I would just get up there with note cards and just read jokes off of those. And I was thinking, I'm going to give these away eventually. I'm not going to keep doing this myself. And then cut to what are we, 8 years later now? And I'm still getting up on stage. And now I'm doing a lot more, it's kind of segued into speaking. And it just keeps going. And it's not my full-time thing. I actually teach music during the day.
Oh, wow.
And then I do stand up at night. So basically I'm Hannah Montana. And I'm just
You don't dance like she does, though, right?
No,
Okay,
I have more clothing on a given day.
You're not swinging on wrecking balls and things like that.
No, I'm like pre-VMA Awards where that happened, Hannah Montana.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, where she switched from wholesome to
not so wholesome.
Not so wholesome,
right.
Wow.
Not a Disney Channel actress anymore.
No, not at all. Oh, my goodness. So as we were talking to Ken Kington about you, because he's the one that told us all about you, and just spoke very highly of you because you had attended a conference that he puts on about speaking because he's so good at that. And he was telling us about, I guess, a book. You're writing a book about it, or it's just a talk that you're doing about fear?
Right now, it's just a talk that I'm doing about fear. But I am working on a book, and it will be geared toward high school and college students, and it will be largely based about fear.
Okay.
Because it's something that consumes a lot of us, and especially at that age.
Right.
And it's a huge part of my story because people are always asking or assuming, because I'm getting up on stage doing stand-up, I'm traveling all over the world. I have now been skydiving against my will, but I went.
Against your will.
Scuba dive, all these things. And they're like, well, you just have no fear. I'm like, that is not the case. If you could see inside my mind, you would see I'm pretty much terrified most of the time.
Wow.
And as a kid, it was, the normal fears, fear of the dark and fear of quicksand in the backyard. And I watched Willow without my parents' permission, and I was convinced that dragon at the end lived in my bathtub drain, so I didn't shower for about 3 months. And my mom was like, we got to figure this one out. And then as I got older, it kind of started morphing into the fears that a lot of us have. It's what if something happens to my parents, and what if I flunk out of school? What if I end up doing radio spots? And but I did see, because I grew up in that very conservative world, and I want to get T-shirts for everybody in that whole conservative world that said, "Judge us, we're judging you." And
that's good.
But there is this one family that has always kind of stuck out in my mind, and they never did anything because they were afraid of everything. They had a worst case scenario for any outcome. So they were afraid of letting their kids travel in the beginning. They were afraid of letting their kids go to college. They were afraid of microwaves. They were to the point where it imprisoned them. And I noticed that even as a kid, I knew that I was kind of held hostage by this fear. And I saw that in them. And I said, I don't want to become that. So I made the choice fairly early on. I think I was around 16 or 17. I decided, okay, I'm never going to make a decision out of fear, or I'm never going to not make a decision out of fear. It has to, it can be for other reasons, but it's not going to be for that. And it's really been a journey of seeing different aspects of God. And there's 3 reasons that I tell kids and my youth that I speak to. I'm like, there's 3 reasons why you need to learn to take that step in spite of fear. And the first one is you get to see God provide.
Yeah.
If you step out and you're like, this is not me, this is all you, God. And I saw that when I was driving to Los Angeles at 21 years old, or I think I turned 21 on the trip. And my sister was with me. She moved out there for the first couple years, and we're driving in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. And this is before iPhones. We don't have Google. We have those they were like bricks with an antenna that you called on. I'm dating myself, but and we start to hear this da, 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 da.
Oh no!
And we were like, oh no. There's nothing around. And so we just keep driving on that tire.
On a flat tire.
And it wasn't even a flat tire. That tire, 2 tires popped off the rim, which I didn't even know was a thing, but it is.
Yeah.
And there was this one exit, and we were like, we have to take it. There were no signs for anything. We pulled off, and right there was an auto repair shop that was about to close.
Wow.
And we pulled in, and they happened to have the 2 right tires and sent us on our way.
Wow.
And I think they even charged us just for the tires. They didn't even charge us labor. So we saw right there, despite all the fears that we had about leaving and moving to this foreign city and pursuing our dreams and our passions, that God's going to provide even the small things like the flat tire.
Right.
He was right there.
When you pulled off, you were probably expecting to hear banjos or something, and
Yeah, the da 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 da. Yeah,
accordions.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I know that is a good self-defense tool. That's
I have an accordion and I know how to use it.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll keep people away. My sister did say that once. She was like, you don't need to take self-defense. She goes, if anyone tries to attack you, just talk. That'll scare them off. And I was like, wow.
So this prison story, what's up with that?
Yes. So this kind of goes along the lines of the whole fear thing. Because another thing you get to see God work when you kind of step out. And so a few years back, earlier on in my stand-up comedy career, myself and a bunch of other comedians, we went into a prison to do stand-up. And it was amazing because I got to go and they were like, do you need anything? Do you want anything? And at first I was like, no, but then I was like, actually, can I have a phone call? Because I just want to call my parents and have, it was in Nashville, it was Nashville County Prison, pop up on their caller ID and be like, hey, you know how you homeschooled me to keep me out of jail?
Well,
joke's on you. I ended up here anyway.
Oh, that's funny.
No, but the joke was on me because somehow I thought I was performing the 2 women's and men's, and I ended up performing in the men's prison in the area where they lived.
Oh.
So there were like bunks in the back, and then they had tables, their common area where they were eating, playing cards, making shivs. And then I was like, I gotta get these jokes. I gotta kill with these jokes or be killed by the jokes. One of the 2. And then on the far ends of the rooms were their showers.
Really?
And some
people
of those
weren't showering
were
at the time.
No, some of them were cleaning up their act, and I was like, okay,
well,
just gonna kind of look at the floor and perform to that. And so the whole time I was like, I want out. I really just want to Jesus, I don't know when you plan on returning, but now's a really good time for me. But what happened, though, is after we got a chance to mingle with the inmates, and my plan was after me and the other comic performed, I was just going to hover by the door until our security guard opened it up. We all had to leave together. And this inmate flags me over, and he was like, hey, homeschool, come over here. And I was like,
homeschool.
Oh, yeah, he called me homeschool. And so I was like, so I go to the table. It's him and these 2 other, inmates, people who I was scared. I was terrified and I didn't want to do it, but I was like, okay, I have to go over there.
Yeah.
And so I sat down. He goes, I've been praying for somebody to come in and answer my questions. And he goes, I know homeschoolers know things. As soon as you said that you were homeschooled, I knew God sent you to answer my questions.
Wow.
And he had been searching for things on grace. Can he be forgiven? And even apologetics questions on the truth of Christianity. And these were the exact questions that I had when I was my late teens going into college, growing up in the church and in a Christian family, I just kind of hit that, was like, why do I believe this?
Right.
And so I had research, so I knew all the answers. And we just had, me and those 3 inmates had the sweetest conversation about grace and about God and what it looks like to be forgiven and to live for him. And I got to see that through my fear, God worked, and he worked in spite of me, not because of me. But he worked. And I've had 2 more opportunities. I left there and I did what most Christians do after we see God work, is we say, that was great. I'm never doing that again, God. Okay, thank you for that, but never again. And I've gone into 2 other prisons, and these were women's prisons. Second one didn't go well. And I was like, that's it, God. I was faithful twice. Okay, it's gone badly twice. And then he called me to do a 3rd one. And I was like, Lord, I know I have to take this, because the only reason I don't want to is because I'm scared it's going to be like the others. And so I did that one, and I got to bring some friends in. We did a worship service. It was a 7 a.m. comedy show
7 a.m.
in a jail, which is my favorite time and audience for comedy. And we had the best time, the best show, and I think 35 or 40 women ended up getting baptized in there. We just took the 1 water bottle that I had brought with me, and the chaplain of the prison baptized them, and we still... we all who went in there, we were like, that was a really neat time. And all of that was because God has convicted me over and over. You cannot be held hostage by your fear. Over and over in the Bible, we see the life starts with fearing the Lord. That's the only thing we're supposed to fear. And then in Proverbs, it says that fear of man lays a snare. Anything else we fear will imprison us. Fearing Christ gives us life. Everything else is the opposite.
Man, pass the collection plate. That's good stuff right there.
That is really good. Kristin Weber telling the story, the great story. Did you get a tattoo that said homeschool?
Yeah, I should actually. I should get my very first address on there, because like we used to have to walk around like with the paper with your address on it in case you get lost as a kid.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I can't memorize things, and so I would have like my little paper in case I forgot my address. So I always was like, I should do Columbia Drive right there.
So you walked away fearless from the prison routine there, and so you translate your journey in these books, I guess, for young women, right? How's it help them? And tell us about that.
Yeah, so the books that I have out now are advice books for teen girls, and it covers all kinds of advice, spiritual, practical, fun, because it's a really hard day and age to be a teen girl. I mean, they're dealing with things that I didn't have to deal with, like social media. I'm constantly having to tell teen girls, look, your worth is not found in the number of likes, follows, and retweets you're getting. It is found in your ability to bear sons. And, sorry, that one takes a second.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm kidding. I never tell them that. So I wrote these just to kind of, a lot of it is very basic advice they would hear from their parents, grandparents. But the book that I'm working on now is going to be more directed toward how do we live as godly adults? How do we adult in a godly way without letting our anxieties and our fears paralyze us? Because we live in a society that we have so much and we have so many options that we are literally being paralyzed by options because we're afraid of choosing the wrong thing. There are so many teenagers that won't do anything because they're afraid it's the wrong thing. I'm like, step out, make a choice, and if it's not the right one, God will redirect you. But if you've prayed about it and you've sought counsel and it seems wise at that time, then God's not going to punish you because you went to this school over this school if you were faithful in making the decision the best way you could. So the book's going to focus more on how do we make those choices and what does it look like to live in God's will, which is another thing that I think gets very convoluted and watered down. And it's very much what we're doing here. We are going to our jobs. We're doing radio interviews. After this, I'm going to go get gas in my car and meet people for lunch. All of those things are God's will because He designed us to do and to create and to live. And when we're doing that, it honors Him. And so being faithful in those little things enables you to be faithful when the bigger things come along. But we tend to kind of only look at His will in the big things. We forget that it's in the tiniest of tiny things.
That's really good. Kristin Weber.
Weber.
Yes.
I got caught up in that.
Ken Kington.
Ken Kington.
Yeah, the next time you come in, we're gonna have to talk more about this because I want to know what gave you the heart for teenagers specifically, teenage girls specifically. Unfortunately, we're about to run out of time, and you probably don't have time to answer that. But
no, it was fear. I was terrified. That was always the group that would come up to me after comedy shows when I did churches. And I was writing for the magazine that Brio got dropped by Focus. I wrote for the magazine when it got picked up, and some of them knew me. And I was like, I'm terrified of you guys. That I didn't like being that age, and I don't like being around that age now. And then my church had a plea. They were like, we really need high school volunteers. And I was like, that's a scary age group. And I was like, but I have the time right now. So I did it. And then I just fell in love with working with that group and love seeing them thrive.
Awesome.
Wow. What a show. We got to have you back. Kristin Weber, you can go to Facebook and check that out. Also, what's a good website they can go to?
KristinWeberOnline.com. KristinWeber online.
If they want to book you for an accordion gig, they can go there as well?
Absolutely. Okay, that is spammail@gmail.com.
Dan and I do interpretive dancing. We could just go with you.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, we got to have her back. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the big game, the Supper Bowl, and we'll be back on Monday with the little Irish girl. I'm Brett Probst.
And I'm Dan Radcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live. Have a great Friday.